It's Reality Check with Craig Price.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me.
You're like A Beautiful Mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump. So
This isn't Self-Esteem Weekly. This is a reality check. Craig, shut up.
it's Reality Check with Craig Price. We're back from hiatus with our annual holiday movie preview with Alan Cerny. Welcome to the podcast, and hello from foggy Northern California. I'm back from my chaotic move across country, and since I was gone for so long, instead of wrapping up the season with Alan Cerny, movie reviewer extraordinaire at comingsoon.net, as well as my co-host at our other podcast, Matinee Heroes, I'm starting the season early. I hopefully can go straight through the holidays, getting guests and more, so I appreciate you sticking with me through the hiatus, and there's more to come. And since it is the holiday season, my annual charity calendar is ready, and you can go to realitycheckpodcast.com/calendar. Zoos included are from Denver, Houston, the wonderful Sun River Nature Center in Bend, Oregon, Maryland, and Minneapolis. All the profits go to redapes.org, and you can go listen to episodes 74 and 190 to hear me talk to founder Richard Zimmerman about what he does and why it is so important. With that said, let's get on with the podcast as we talk movies coming out tomorrow through Christmas with our pal and my Matinee Heroes co-host, Alan Cerny. Another holiday is here, so that means another holiday edition of Reality Check. So thank you for coming on. For those of you who don't know, my guest is my co-host of Matinee Heroes, Alan Cerny. Welcome, Alan.
Hi. How's everybody doing?
And,
well, they can't actually talk to me, so.
And unlike the past, we are not doing it face-to-face. We are doing it virtually through, as I have moved to California, and Alan is still in Texas and will always be in Texas because he is a Texan through and through.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. You're thinking, well, I might move. Oh, yeah, I might move to Austin when I grow up.
Yeah, really. That's about as far as I'll move, probably.
Hey, Texas is big enough where if you move to Austin, it's like moving to another state.
Yeah, this is true. And Austin pretty much is its own state.
Yeah. Well, we're doing our annual holiday movie review, so let's take a look at this week. So starting tomorrow, Wednesday is the traditional opening because they try to get everything in before Thanksgiving. And Pixar apparently is really pushing for this movie coming out called Coco.
Yeah, they've been screening it quite a bit here, and we have a huge Latino community here in Texas, obviously, but and it plays very well for them. But it also, I hear so many good things about it. It's got a very high score on Rotten Tomatoes. I've known some people who've seen it, and they say it's up there with some of Pixar's best, which is good because I think in the recent years they've been kind of dipping a little bit. I think they're concentrating a little too much on sequels, and we even got that teaser trailer for Incredibles 2 this week, and I didn't care for it. Oddly enough, I didn't like the idea that it's basically continuing right where the first one left off. I was hoping that we'd get some space and maybe a few years and the kids would grow up a little bit, but I guess that's not what they're doing. But as far as Coco is concerned, it looks wonderful. It kind of reminds me of a movie a few years ago called The Book of Life, which is basically set in the same thing during the Day of the Dead. It looks really cute and fun, and I hope it's really enjoyable.
I'm sure it's Pixar. Even a bad Pixar movie is better than the most animated. So you're going in and going to get something at least worth your money. Absolutely. Because
I think that they have gotten kind of a little lackadaisical in recent years. But I think as the most part, when you sit down to a Pixar movie, you're going to get something of real good quality and something of real excellence. And I like it when they don't do sequel stuff anymore. I think that they should do more original things and steer clear of the sequels. I know that that's their bread and butter, especially the Cars franchise. But as far as original stories from Pixar, I think that that's where they're really shine. And from what I've heard of this one, it's getting quite a few comparisons to Hayao Miyazaki of all people. And it's a really charming kind of film for little kids, but it's also got a lot of spirit and a lot of heart to it.
Then there's a movie that I can't wait to see, and you have seen, called The Darkest Hour. This is Gary Oldman doing Winston Churchill.
Yeah, it's pretty good. His performance is really great, and you're wondering whether or not it's half makeup and half Gary Oldman. But Gary Oldman's a juggernaut of an actor anyway, and we all have seen performances of his that we love. And I really liked him in this a lot. I think it's an interesting story, and if you've seen Dunkirk from earlier in the year, this is kind of the complement to Dunkirk, where Dunkirk is the event. You're in the event. You're in it with the people that are the soldiers and the pilots and the ships with the captains and different families that went over to go rescue those people off the beach, and you're in the event. The Darkest Hour is more about the event and how it came to pass and how everything happened and the big heads that were on display. And Winston Churchill had only been in office for a few weeks when Dunkirk took place, and a lot of people didn't trust him. A lot of people didn't think that he could be capable of handling the job. And there were a few people in his cabinet, people he was working with, who wanted to capitulate to the Nazis, who wanted to capitulate to Germany, who wanted to, he had Neville Sinclair
from The Rocketeer.
Yeah, but you have what was his name? Is it Neville
Chamberlain?
Neville Chamberlain. That's right. And you have they're trying to make peace and they're trying to avoid war. And Winston Churchill is not really having it. He's saying, war is terrible. It's something that's very bad. We don't want it to happen. But in this case, it's that or we die. We have to go to war here. We have to fight these people. And we don't really have a choice in the matter, because if we bend to their will, then we're not going to be England anymore, and we'll cease to exist in a few years. They'll just take us over, because that's what they've done to every other country that they've invaded, where other countries have welcomed them in, and then they're just wiped out or, just taken over completely, and we can't allow that to happen. And so the conflict between Winston Churchill and his cabinet, and whether or not he's even on the right path, he's not even sure. And he even has to have a conversation with his king, King George, to decide whether or not he's taking the right path. He doesn't even know. It's really well acted. Gary Oldman is really great. His wife, Kristen Scott Thomas, is really great. Visually, it's not the most spectacular movie. I mean, most of the time it's just a couple of talking heads in a room, but the performances are so compelling, and the makeup job they did on Gary Oldman is tremendous. I kept watching the screen looking for like the crease in his face where the makeup starts and his face begins, but it's not there. It's pretty great, and his performance is pretty wonderful.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, because it's one of those things where Gary Oldman is such a great actor that you give him something that he can really chew into, because he's been playing Commissioner Gordon. He is Sirius Black. He's been kind of mainstreaming. He also plays the villain a lot. So this is a great chance to see him once again. It's almost like Mark Felt, the movie with Liam Neeson, where you can actually start seeing them act versus just be.
Right, and I love Gary Oldman's performance here. And it's not just him blustering, and he does the sequence of the famous speech about Dunkirk. We will fight them in the air, we will fight them in land. That's in the film. But there's moments of the guy doesn't stop smoking from frame one to the end. He just keeps smoking his cigars and keeps drinking his whiskey, and there's a reason why he died. He did not behave properly with this. He did not treat his body like a temple, that's for sure. But he also plays him with some humor and some heart. The best scene in the film is where Winston Churchill doesn't know what to do next. He's kind of stuck, and he decides to break away from his team, who take him from place to place, and he breaks away from them, and goes into the subway, and gets on a subway, and people start to recognize him. And then he starts asking them questions. What do you think about the war? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And the way he interacts with the people on the train is really kind of sweet and kind of passionate and kind of emotional. And it's actually really well done. That's my favorite scene in the film. And it's probably going to get a lot of awards. Gary Oldman is probably a front runner for Best Actor, although we haven't seen all the performances yet. And there are a few here that I actually wouldn't mind seeing in the awards categories. There's a couple coming up in a few minutes, actually, we're going to talk about. But it's a heck of a movie. It's really well done.
And then we get to, since it's Thanksgiving time, it wouldn't be Thanksgiving if we hadn't been talking about Christmas already for 3 weeks. Well,
6 weeks, really.
Yeah, because I saw stuff in the stores. I want to say October 1st, maybe.
Yeah, before Halloween.
Yeah, it was just crazy. So, The Man Who Invented Christmas, which is Christopher Plummer and Dan Stevens, in a story about Charles Dickens and how he created the story of Christmas Carol.
Yeah, I've got the screener of this one at home. I haven't watched it yet. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And, Christopher Plummer, obviously, from recent events this year, is going to take over the spot for Kevin Spacey in All the Money in the World, which comes out on December 22nd. I still don't know how they're going to pull that off. But it looks interesting and looks kind of a wholesome, kind of a family affair. And A Christmas Carol is one of the great Christmas stories of all time. And it looks like it's an interesting way that they're going to go about telling the story and how it came to be. And I've always been a fan of Dan Stevens. I think he's a really good actor. Not just on Downton Abbey, but some of the performances he's done. There's a movie he did called The Guest, which is kind of a 80s Terminator action horror / knockoff kind of thing, which is actually quite fun, and he's actually really good in it. I liked him in Colossal, and he was the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, and I thought he did a good job. He has a decent singing voice,
yeah, he's also the main character on the television show on FX. It's about
Legion, right?
Legion, yes, absolutely. He's really good in that too.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that show yet, and I hear a lot of great things about it. It's pretty high caliber from what I understand.
So is this the same like the Tom Hanks movie where he was how Walt Disney made Mary Poppins, and this is basically the same except it's how Charles Dickens created the Christmas Carol, or?
I assume so. It's probably a little fantasy, a little reality thrown in there, just because it's going to be one of those family kind of films. So we're probably not going to get the accurate truth because, if you want to be true about it, writing is kind of a boring thing. Most of it's internal. So, I think you're going to sit there and see him on a typewriter for 2 hours or writing in a journal. So I don't know. It's probably a little fantasy there, but it looks interesting. And, I'm not familiar with this director either. I think this might be a first film, but lots of good. Jonathan Pryce is in it as well, and I love Jonathan Pryce. It looks good.
Well, then we skip to Friday, December 1st, and a movie that I know that you are gaga about, The Disaster Artist, which is James and Dave Franco working together, but James Franco directed this. I think he wrote some of it. It's basically a James Franco joint.
Yeah. He's a director. He's directed other films that I've seen, actually, and he's actually not a bad director. He's really good. The Disaster Artist is about the making of the famous cult film The Room, Tommy Wiseau's really, really terrible magnum opus. He made this strange, odd drama. Is it a drama? Is it a comedy? Who knows? And the guy himself is an oddball of the first caliber. And it's based off the book, The Disaster Artist, which is funny because after coming out of the movie, they were handing out that book at the screening. And so I grabbed one. So I'm probably going to dive into that and read it. I still haven't seen The Room yet. I don't like movies like that where I've never been like the biggest fan of Rocky Horror, for example. These midnight camp movies where people just sit and make fun of the film. I don't mind seeing movies like that, but it's not an experience that I like to do because I like to watch films that are good, But this is a really good film, and when I said about Gary Oldman being having pretty much walking away with the Oscar, I'm not so sure about that because James Franco is really, really good in this. He plays Tommy Wiseau like he's an alien who's been studying humanity for like 3 years, and then he tries to pretend to be human and he just gets it all wrong, and he's just fantastic in this film. It's really funny and it's really sweet. James Franco and his brother Dave, they don't play siblings in the film, they play friends. Greg Sestero is who Dave Franco plays, and they come together to make this really strange movie because they move together to Hollywood. They can't seem to get arrested, so one day Greg Sestero says to Tommy Wiseau, we should just make our own movie. And Tommy Wiseau says, Yes, let's do, or how he, I don't know, I couldn't even approximate that accent. Yes, let us make this movie. And so for some reason, Tommy Wiseau has like hand over fist money, and they don't even know where it came from. In the movie never tells you. He just has the money to make this movie. So it's a $6 million film, but it's a film that's made through the eyes of this guy who does just not seem to understand how basic human interaction works. Do yourself a favor and, I don't recommend seeing the whole film. I haven't seen the whole film myself. I from what I understand, it's like 40 minutes of just bonkers, crazy, nutty stuff and 100 minutes or 90 minutes of really, really boring stuff that makes no sense. And I will probably watch it just to be more informed on the subject matter here.
Well, let's differentiate that. You're talking about the Room, which is what this movie is based on, not this actual movie. The Disaster Artist is not boring.
Yeah, no, The Disaster Artist is great. The Disaster Artist is funny. You can tell that it's just these two guys, when they get together and they create art. I mean, and Tommy Wiseau has this feelings hurt a lot because Greg seems to be coming into success, and Tommy Wiseau keeps kind of pulling him back because he wants that friendship, and you're never quite sure whether that's friendship or something more. And James Franco just plays him so odd. Like the sequence where they're shooting a love scene from The Room, and he just comes out butt naked, and everybody's going, "Put on something." We're not shooting for like another 30 or 40 minutes. He just comes on, and it's just really weird, and his behavior is so weird. And at the end of the movie, which is kind of fun, where you could see they do the comparison clips from the clips that they shot for The Disaster Artist and their real clips from The Room. And it's really kind of funny how they get it pretty close. There's this one sequence in a flower shop that everybody talks about. And I'm trying to wonder why everybody talks about it in The Room. And it's just strange. It's like all these really weird decisions that were made in just this little 3-minute sequence where people just don't talk like that in real life. It's kind of strange. It's a lot of fun. It's a really sweet comedy. It's really enjoyable. And I highly recommend it. And you might even make it to the Oscars. It might. It's it's a comedy. Those movies kind of already have a hard time of it during Oscar season. But I mean, the performances are solid. It's really got a solid script, and it's got really good supporting cast. You got Seth Rogen and Josh Hutcherson and a lot of other people you'll recognize. I mean, the entire How Did This Get Made podcast is on there. All three of them are there. And a lot of the comedy greats that modern comedy greats that are, I guess they just love that film so much that they wanted to be a part of this, so they're all there. And you'll see so many faces. Judd Apatow, a lot of people you'll recognize. It's a solid, entertaining film, and I think it'll probably do really well this year.
Well, also coming out that weekend is a movie that I'm looking forward to because I'm a big BioShock fan, the video game BioShock. I'm also a big Guillermo del Toro fan, despite the fact I'm not a big horror fan. He kind of straddles that border between fantasy and horror, and he's really talented. He's really visionary, and I can't wait to see this movie called The Shape of Water. It looks like it is a monster movie thrown in with a love story about a amphibious man that's held captive.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a cross between Creature from the Black Lagoon and Before Sunrise. But I want to see it really badly. It screened here, but I couldn't make it because I had to work. So I was really upset about that. It actually screened the same day The Darkest Hour screened, and I couldn't make it. And I hear it's fantastic. The performances are so high quality. I hear Sally Hawkins is maybe a lock for the nomination for Best Actress. And Richard Jenkins for Best Supporting. And it just looks tremendous. And anytime Guillermo del Toro makes a movie that's that seems to come from the heart. I mean, he loves his monsters. He thinks his monsters deserve love and deserve to be treated well. And and I hear that. I mean, the trailer comes across. I haven't seen the second trailer. Kind of avoided it, but the first trailer comes across as this kind of whimsical romance. And actually, I mean, he's a legitimate monster. I mean, he kills people. So
it looks like he is created for a purpose, like a weapon, because Michael Shannon is in it, the great Michael Shannon, and it seems like Michael Shannon's like in charge and is trying to make sure that he is used to nefarious purposes versus just being left alone.
Yeah, and I mean, it's The Doug Jones, who plays so many of the creatures in Guillermo del Toro's catalog, plays the what do they call him? The Gill Man, I think, is what they wanted us to call him, or the Fish Man. I'm not even sure.
I think it's Gilman del Toro.
Yeah, it's that whole scene. She sleeps with the fishes. He really sleeps with the fishes.
Well, it's interesting because I've got to meet Doug Jones quite a bit at these conventions, and he's a really sweet guy. So,
yeah.
And basically, if you've ever seen a very thin monster in any del Toro movie, basically in any movie now, he's very much a specialist. I kind of root for him now because I didn't know him. I mean, I don't know him well, but I've met him a couple times. He's just, like I said, he's a tremendously sweet and nice person. And so now that I know that he's these monsters, these creatures, like he was Abe Sapien in Hellboy, another Del Toro movie, I kind of root for him because it's like, so I'm hoping that while I understand he is probably a quote-unquote monster at the beginning of this movie, I'm hoping that, like I said, Del Toro follows not necessarily a formula, but his template of his monsters are awesome, and they deserve some love. And I hope it turns out okay, because you never know nowadays. Nowadays they purposely change things at the very end because people expect a certain thing.
Yeah, I really like him as an actor, and he has this physical presence and this grace to him that's really interesting to watch. And as Abe Sapien, I always enjoyed his performances. He played the guy in Pan's Labyrinth with the eyes in his hands. He played the Pale Man as well as that, and he was terrifying. He didn't say anything, but he's just terrifying. Yeah, and I think doesn't. I mean, he buries himself under makeup, but that performance still rings true, and I really love that he's in this, and I'm looking forward to seeing this film quite a bit. It's up there as one of the most anticipated films of the year for me, and I'm really excited for it.
Well, it looks absolutely beautiful. So when we get to December 8th, there's basically one movie we're going to talk about, and this is what I would call the quote-unquote Oscar bait movie of the season, though I think it's going to end up being a good movie, called I, Tonya, Margot Robbie and Sebastian Stan, so Harley Quinn and the Winter Soldier. Yeah, because now you can figure out who is by what superhero they play nowadays. It's the Tonya Harding story, as Margot Robbie is Tonya Harding. And so I'm trying to figure out if this is a straight-laced biopic or this is going to be a comedic take on this, because an assault and it's ice skating and it was a big scandal. There's a lot of ways this could easily be turned into a comedy.
Well, it's both. I haven't seen it yet, but it's screened. This is another film that's screened a ton of times, and it closed the Houston Cinema Arts Festival here. It's also screened a couple times in the Draft House, and I haven't been able to get there because this is a neon film. And I hear it's both, and I hear Margot Robbie is another one that's probably going to lock for Best Actress. And the Best Actress category this year is going to be really, really strong. And I hear it's played for laughs until it's not, and then you realize that these are really broken people who've done terrible things for ambition, and they don't even understand what they've done, and they don't understand that all the eyes that fall on them. And this is the pre-internet kind of thing where it kind of studies how we get to that place where every Kardashian is we watch these kind of vacant people on television, or we watch these vacant people online, and all kind of started with that and the O.J. Simpson story. And I'm really fascinated in seeing it, and I hear really great things about Margot Robbie, and I hear really great things about Sebastian Stan too, and Allison Janney, who's in it. And I love Allison Janney. I'll watch her in anything. She's really great. She's one of those actresses that I think they should give her more stuff to do, because she's always brings it every time I see it. I love that show Mom that she's on. I think she's really great in that.
I think it's great that she does the sitcom Mom. I don't watch the sitcoms very much, but I hear she's really good on that. But she also has time to do these movies.
Yeah, and Mom is fantastic. It's a show that I didn't think I was going to like, because the producer also does the Big Bang Theory, which I cannot stand, and also 2 Men.
It's Chuck Lorre, who's he's a huge producer who does a lot more than that. I think he does a couple other shows too. So Chuck Lorre is a powerhouse in sitcom television.
Yeah, and Mom is great, but I, Tonya looks really wonderful. I'm kind of bummed that I haven't seen it yet, because it's screened a few times and I keep missing it. And I'm wanting to see it. Hopefully, I'll get a screener of that one because I don't know when it's going to come to the theaters here in town. So I'm trying to watch everything I can now. It's the end of the year, so all those screeners start coming in, and I know it's like, oh gosh, it's first world problems, but I do try to watch everything. Try to cover stuff. So,
and believe me, the Oscar show is going to be very difficult this year because not being in the same town as you are, my access to screeners has disappeared. So, so it's going to be a lot of I didn't see that. Then we move to the December 15th, which is definitely a movie you're going to have to see in theaters because you're not going to get a screener of this one.
It's this little tiny independent film. I don't even think it's got a whole lot of promotion.
No, and it's got a very independent director, Rian Johnson, which a lot of folks may not be aware of. Rian Johnson, especially not the name. He has done a couple movies. Why don't you? I can't off the top of my head. I know he's a buddy of yours from BNAT.
Rian Johnson directed a film called Brick, which is basically a film noir set in high school, modern high school, and it's fantastic. Then he did another movie called Brothers Bloom, which is about two con men, also kind of slash magicians. And then he did a film called Looper, and Looper's amazing.
Looper is fantastic.
Yeah, Looper's great. And he also directed, by far, the best episode of Breaking Bad, Ozymandias. And he directed the one with the fly as well. And he's done some television and stuff. But this, of course, we're talking about is Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And I have the highest of highest expectations for this because I think that Rian Johnson is a phenomenal filmmaker. And when it comes to Star Wars, it's always the second movie in the trilogy. Well, it didn't play so true for the prequels, but definitely Empire Strikes Back is the high point of that trilogy. And I kind of expect this one to be the high point of this one. Where everything changes and we really learn, get into the meat of the story, and it's not just simply a homage to the original films like Force Awakens was, which is fine. It's a good movie.
Well, they had a plan for that. That was a purpose plan where they were trying to get everybody reintroduced to the feeling of Star Wars.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, they did that on purpose because I think a lot of people thought it was a cop-out, and it was like, no, we kind of have to wash the taste of the prequels out of people's mouths and remind them why they love Star Wars so much and progress the story. So there was a lot of overlap purposely put in there to make people love it so much again.
Yeah, I want to see. I mean, there are reasons why you love Star Wars. Okay, the whole aesthetic of Star Wars, the ships, the Jedi, and the smuggling and the rebellion and the Empire and all that stuff. There's a lot of ingredients in that stew, and I kind of want to see new things. And from what I understand, and what I've seen so far, and I'm kind of getting into that weird place where I don't dive deep into Star Wars. This film as I normally do because I'm trying to stay about as spoiler free as I can, but it's hard not to because it's a rabbit hole that it's like next thing you know I'm 2 hours into looking at Star Wars spoilers, so I really have to be careful. But I think that we're going to get a new idea of what the Force is supposed to be in this film. I think we see some new gear, we see some new creatures, and spoiler alert. I mean, I'm not spoiling this film, but obviously Han Solo is not going to be a part of this, and how that plays out and what that means for this series, because I don't know if you can redeem some. I mean, because I wonder if they're trying that redemption arc with Kylo Ren, and I don't know if you can redeem somebody who does what he did.
Well, I don't think so, because if I don't want to spoil more stuff, but the latest trailer that I just saw last night doesn't show him getting any better.
Yeah. And I haven't watched it yet. I say I won't watch it, but I guarantee you about 15 minutes after this podcast is over, I'll be probably watching it. And then we're not even sure of Rey's loyalty now, because we see Rey learning, and from the trailers that we've seen so far, we see Rey learning aspects of the Force from Luke Skywalker, and I'm so happy that we have Mark Hamill, and he looks like he's killing it. I mean, he really looks like. I mean, people are going to say, well, maybe he'll get an acting nod for Luke Skywalker, and these movies don't normally go that way, but
no.
But mind, and I that one sequence in the trailer where he says, "I wasn't scared before, and I am now." And Luke has this look of abject fear on his face, like I don't want to screw the galaxy up like Obi-Wan did with my dad, and the line that he says in the trailer, "This is not going to turn out how you think," And I don't know what all that means. Is Luke good? Is Luke bad? Now, Mark Hamill has said in interviews recently, says, if you got this idea that Luke is bad, don't go that way. It's not that he's bad. It's that he is very, very, very uncertain of himself. And he's done something that ended up turning out very, very badly. And I guess it's supposed to be the training of Kylo Ren, but I have a feeling it might not be. It might be something else. And he doesn't have any confidence in himself anymore. And when Rey finds him, there's a reason why he's on that planet by himself, because he thinks he's screwed everything up. And there's just all this stuff. Of course, it's Star Wars, so we're gonna get Finn, and we're gonna get Oscar Isaac's character Poe, and we're gonna get some new characters. Laura Dern shows up. Benicio del Toro shows up. We're gonna get our final performance of Carrie Fisher. And I hope they figure out a good way to be appropriate and move her out. But I mean, how do you do that in these kind of films? I'm sure they'll cover that ground, maybe, but we'll see. But as a whole, I mean, I have very, very high expectations for The Last Jedi. I'm really excited for that week because I can see it on the 11th, and then I'm going to see it on the 14th, and I'm going to see it on the 15th, and I'm going to be Star Wars'd out. Well, that's not possible for me, you know that. Yeah. But
well, I think Disney themselves and Lucasfilm have high hopes for it because they gave Rian Johnson another trilogy to work on.
Yeah, and we don't know anything about it. We don't know the story behind it. I'm really excited for that.
It's a non-Skywalker, so there's not going to be Skywalkers in it.
Yeah, and I hope that it's something Force related. I know you have your love of Star Wars and my love of Star Wars. We love it just as equally, but we have different aspects that we love more. And I love all the Force stuff and the Jedi stuff, but I also know that you have to have that other stuff, the smuggling stuff, the crime stuff, the real kind of tactile world stuff that they have to make the Jedi stuff work. Because when you get just all Jedi stuff, you get the prequels, and so you have to have a balance between the two. And I'm really excited to see what they cover. In 3 films, it must be pretty epic. And from what I understand, they're saying it's a unexplored piece of Star Wars lore. And I don't know what that means. Does that mean it's Old Republic stuff? Does that mean the rise of the Sith, the rise of Palpatine? Does it mean we get to see Yoda? Yoda's on his first adventures, which would be actually really cool. I kind of hope that happens. I don't know. We'll find out. And I'm real peace with the fact that Star Wars is going to outlive me.
Yeah, it's well, and so is pretty much all the franchises that are. I mean, because now they get Lord of the Rings on Amazon, and it's just gonna be a situation where they're looking for the next big franchise, which kind of is what's ruining Hollywood to some degree.
Yeah,
I mean, they keep trying with different things. People keep thinking that there's no good original stuff, but there are some good original movies. The problem is they're trying to gear them towards franchises, and so that means if you like it, at some point they're going to probably ruin it because they just kind of wear it thin. But then you take a couple years and it comes back. The cycle, I'm like Shape of Water is why I'm so excited, because that is got everything I want in it, and I know it's not going to be a franchise.
Yeah. And I like franchises, and obviously I like Star Wars, and I like these continuing stories. I also like the idea that stories end. And, I mean, this idea that, Star Wars, maybe the universe will stay on, but they have stories in that universe, and those stories will have a beginning and an end. That's fine with me, but I have to, like I said, when I die, they'll continue to make Star Wars films that I'm not going to be able to see unless I'm looking from another place. And,
yeah. Well, I'm excited to go to that hotel they're going to make it either Disneyland or Disney World, where it's all immersive. They assign you, or you pick a character, and you get to. The hotel is like you in another planet, and everything in the hotel except in your room is all about. The actors all know that if you're going to be a smuggler, you're a smuggler for the weekend. It's almost like Westworld, except it's not that developed.
Right. I don't know how much money it's going to cost to go there, but I'll probably happily pay it. I definitely want to go to that, and I definitely want to go see the Star Wars, the area of Star Wars they're going to build in Disney, and it's going to be pretty great. I mean, we're going to have Star Wars for the rest of our lives, and for us to say that at our age, there was a time when Star Wars was not around, and now it's like a buffet, and we're eating until we're throwing up, the
problem is that I'm out of shape, so all this stuff that I want to do, I'm going to get tired, walking Star World, and I'm not going to. I may not want to get on all the rides because I'm going to be 50, 60 years old, and it's like, I want to see it. I'll go once, but I hope my heart doesn't give out.
Yeah, it'll be our Mecca. We'll have to go at least once in our lives, so I'm sure we'll go.
Yeah, and if they have a Star Wars retirement home, I'm definitely going to look into that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll be the Jabba the Hutt, and everybody can be walking around me.
Get your Salacious Crumb pet going on. So let's move on to Wednesday, December 20th. They've got two really big movies that I'm actually looking forward to. Both of them, one a lot more than the other. The first one is not a remake. It's a continuation, sequel, reboot kind of thing of a movie that I actually worked on.
Oh, okay.
I was an extra in the original Jumanji, which was filmed in Keene, New Hampshire. I didn't get to meet Robin Williams like face to face, but I got to see him work and do some things. It was mostly the scenes where the animals are running down the street and stepping on cars. I saw them destroy that car that the elephant walks on.
Oh, cool.
And it's really interesting to see because that elephant is not there. And so to see a car get crushed by steps when nothing's there is pretty cool to see. And of course, we're talking about the rock vehicle, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah, and we got Dwayne Johnson, we got Kevin Hart, we got Jack Black, Nick Jonas. We got it looks a lot of fun. There's a new trailer that just came out. I guess they attached to the Justice League. And that kind of goes into the story a little more, where it's basically Jumanji, the board game, somehow gets installed inside a video game. And so these high school kids they're doing detention, they turn the game on, they get sucked into the game, and they all take these parts of these different avatars. And it looks fun. I kind of like Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart together. I don't think it's a very good movie, but the film that they did last year, their chemistry together is a lot of fun, and it seems that takes place here too. There's a sequence in the new trailer where they all realize that they only have 3 lives, and after each life, if you lose a life, then you have to continue until, I guess, after the 3rd life you're gone. And they have this list where everybody has their weaknesses. And obviously, The Rock's character says he has no weaknesses, but Kevin Hart's character says he has cake as a weakness. And there's a scene in here in the trailer where he eats cake, and he goes, "Look, nothing happened," and then he explodes.
It does look fun. I like the way they take it, and the Rock is in some I would call subpar movies, but he is not a subpar performer. He's given it his all every time he does something, and I really appreciate that. Even if I don't like what he's in, and he does kind of play up the eyebrow wrestling moves a lot. He's still a very charismatic and fun guy to watch on screen. And Kevin Hart, I like Kevin Hart when he's yelling. He does a really good job of like yelling and getting exasperated.
Yeah, and he does that a lot. No, and I love The Rock, and I love him in the Fast and Furious movies. I love him when he doesn't take himself too seriously, but he also has the action chops to be a badass on screen. And he's actually he's not up there in age, but he's getting there, and so I could see him kind of settling into more serious action roles later on, or more serious parts. But for right now, he seems to be having fun, and I'm looking forward to him in this. I didn't care for the original Jumanji. Sorry, I know you worked on it.
No. I mean, it is what it was. It was a movie of the '90s, and it had a weird premise, and the computer graphics were not quite there yet.
Yeah. But I mean, you had Robin Williams doing his Robin Williams thing, and that's always a pleasure. And obviously, he's not here now to do this one. But at the same time, maybe they'll pay some homage to him some way. I'm sure they will. And it does look fun. It looks more epic in scale than the first film for sure. Looks crazy busy and lots of action and interesting things going on. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. I don't like I said, I didn't like the first one, so I don't know how this will play. But I mean, the cast looks wonderful and looks really thrilling and having a good time. And the director is Jake Kasdan, who is Lawrence Kasdan's son. And he directed some pretty great comedies. Obviously, Walk Hard is one of them.
That's great.
So he's gonna bring the funny for sure, I think. And I like him as a director. He's got a really nice visual style too.
Well, this next movie, I know your wife is very excited for, and it has my nemesis, Hugh Jackman. It's The Greatest Showman, the story of P.T. Barnum, and it's actually a full-fledged musical.
Yeah, I'm really kind of oddly excited to see this in a big way. I've come to the conclusion this point in life that I just love musicals. I do love them. And this one looks to be flat out a musical. And I love that this latest trailer doesn't hide the fact that it's a musical, because so many other trailers, when you see these films, even the trailer for La La Land, when they had the music over it and the kind of the dance stuff, but they didn't really play up to the fact that it's a musical. This one, they dive right into that. And I've listened to a couple of the songs that they have, and a lot of they're really well done. I get the idea that the character who plays the bearded lady is going to be kind of a pretty significant role in this. And, you get Zac Efron and Zendaya as well, and Michelle Williams. And it just looks really cool. I know my wife is dying to see this movie. And I'm pretty excited for it.
Like I said, Hugh Jackman can pretty much do anything. He was already in what I think might be one of the best movies this year in Logan.
Yeah, he was.
And we forget I forget that Logan was this year.
Yeah, this year is so packed, and so much has just happened in this year in general, so it's hard to remember everything that's played. But yeah, this year is so packed that, and he is great in Logan. But I love that Hugh Jackman is two performers. He'll play that gritty action stuff and superhero stuff, and he also wants to play this broad musical stuff that, like he did in Les Miserables and this. He's like he's a song and dance man, and he's an action guy. I could see why he would be your nemesis, because the guy can do pretty much anything.
Yeah, he's good looking. He's talented. He can sing. He can dance. There's nothing he can't do. I hate his guts. All right,
but it looks really wonderful, and I like the songs. The songs that I've heard so far are really, really kind of toe tapping kind of things. They're really big numbers. And I love big numbers in musicals. I don't like the musicals that are now where they try to keep it some grounded in reality. If they've ever seen a Busby Berkeley film where there's just no way geographically those movies make any sense, that's the kind of musicals I like, because it's a fantasy. Nobody breaks out in a song in the real world. So why are you trying to base your film in kind of a real world aspect, trying to base it like, well, if people sang in real life, this is how it would be. No, people don't break out in a song in real life, because music just doesn't appear out of thin air, and that's just not the way it works. So just go with it and make these crazy moments. And this film looks like it has that.
Well, I'm looking forward to see what Zendaya can do. She was in the Spider-Man movie, and I've never heard her sing. I know that's where she comes from. She's a pop star first and a actress second, and so I think to put her in something like this, because this is not going to be something that's going to be ignored. The Greatest Showman's going to bring in people. It's got everything you want in it. So I expect it to do well. I don't know if it's going to do gangbusters, but I know it'll do well, and it'll probably get awards.
Yeah, and I like the idea that Zac Efron's coming back to musicals after High School Musical. He wandered the countryside, did other things, and now he's coming back to musicals. It's kind of weird, but I kind of dig that.
I think he's got to redeem himself after Baywatch.
Oh, that movie was bad.
Yeah.
That movie was bad.
Well, then we get to Friday, December 22nd, the last Friday before Christmas, and there's two movies coming out, and they both by powerhouse directors. You've seen one, I believe. No.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, you did see. The first one is Downsizing by Alexander Payne. That's right, you did see this one.
Yes, I have seen Downsizing, and it's not good. Unfortunately, it's not a good movie. Yeah, it's a film about how, the energy of the world is depleting, and this idea that they can shrink people down to a tenth of their size or less, and maybe they'll use less energy. And so Matt Damon and Kristen Wiig, who are a married couple, they volunteer for the procedure. And then, and it says this in the trailer, so I'm not really spoiling anything. Kristen Wiig backs out. She decides not to do it anymore. So Matt Damon's stuck as this tiny little guy in this community of tiny people. And then the film kind of takes this weird turn into this other character, which I like the character a lot. I like the performance a lot. But the movie doesn't have a consistent tone, and it doesn't have a consistent message. I don't know what the movie is trying to say at the end of the day. It kind of goes oddly into apocalyptic ideas where basically humanity's doomed. We're fucked, and there's no way to get out of it. And we have people who are willing to commit to the idea of trying to help the world, even though we're on the path of destruction, or people who are not willing to commit to that and just wallow along until they die, and Matt Damon is the latter until he becomes the former kind of thing. It's interesting, and I love Alexander Payne. He is one of my favorite directors. Election is a masterpiece. Sideways is a masterpiece. And this is his first time, I guess, dealing with real effects work, because the effects are really cool. Everybody looks amazing. But it's just not good. It doesn't have a really solid through line, and the story doesn't make the best sense. And Matt Damon's character is kind of a waffle. I don't know how else to say it. He's the only way I can say is he's just totally white bread. He doesn't have any motivations, and until the movie makes him have motivation. I didn't like it much at all, and I feel bad because I reviewed it coming out of it was one of the reviews that kind of knocked it down on its Rotten Tomatoes peg. It doesn't get a whole lot of. It's not highly well regarded, I guess. But that's a shame, because Alexander Payne really is a great director, and it's just a shame. It's an interesting movie. I think it's an interesting failure. I don't think it's quite very good. And obviously, the other film that comes out this day is going to knock it on its ass.
Right. Well, this is the next movie is called The Post, and this, when you listen to this, and all you can think about is Oscar. This is true Oscar bait, even though I'm sure that's not why they made it. It's a Steven Spielberg movie. So right there, the caliber, it puts it in the running even before we even see it.
Yep.
It stars Tom Hanks, Oscar, with Meryl Streep, Oscar, with Alison Brie, and Carrie Coon. Now, Carrie Coon is from The Leftovers. She is a fantastic actress. She was also in the second season of Fargo.
She's also in Gone Girl.
And
she played an Affleck sister in Gone Girl.
Yeah, so this is a period piece about the Pentagon Papers and it's about journalists. It's called The Post. The journalists' involvement in uncovering the Pentagon Papers that showed the U.S.'s involvement behind the scenes in Vietnam. So this looks like it's all set up to be an amazing movie.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned. I mean, this is a deep bench for acting. We got Bob Odenkirk in it, and we got Bradley Whitford in it. Lots of great actors in this film. I am really hyped to see this, and this looks like angry Spielberg to me, which I like when he becomes topical and makes a film that, because obviously this is a movie about how we're screwing our journalists over, and they do important work, and we have to let them do this important work. And back in the day, not even all that long ago, they were uncovering really bad malfeasance from our government, and we need them to do that again now. Obviously, he picked a moment in history. But he wanted to basically illuminate something of modern day. And I think Lincoln, in its way, does that too, because at the time he made Lincoln, Obama was being, trashed by the right all over the place. And nobody was getting, even worse. It would not even worse now, but back then, just 4 short years ago, where Republicans and Democrats were not getting along and they were stagnant. And basically Spielberg made Lincoln, which basically shows that it's always been like that. And the stuff that comes out of our collaboration with each other becomes real great, becomes what makes America great, truly makes America great. And this is a film that I think he's doing it really personally. It's interesting because he did Ready Player One before The Post. And then Trump got elected and all this stuff happened politically. And then he decided, I have to tell this story. And so The Post, while filmed after, is getting released before Ready Player One, which is a big special effects film that's coming out in April. So that makes sense. But at the same time, he really wanted to tell this story. It was very important to him, and he make it, and it get released this year. I don't even think he made it for Oscars. He made it because he thought it was important. It's a really important story that people need to see. And of course, he stacked it with such great performers. And Tom Hanks, obviously, I don't think Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep have ever worked together before.
I don't think so either.
And Meryl Streep, just from the shots in this trailer alone, she's guaranteed a nomination. I love. She's Daniel Day-Lewis. She's better than Daniel Day-Lewis, maybe. She is such a great actress. You have to love what she does, and seeing her in everything she does. And she can do anything. She's versatile. She does musicals, comedies, dramas. I don't think she's ever been in a science fiction film, but
Defending Your Life, you could be called science fiction.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, definitely. And I'm so happy that she's doing this work. And from what I understand, I haven't seen it as of this recording, but I will be seeing it pretty soon. I understand this is a knockout. And when Spielberg does adult stuff, I mean, now he does adult stuff more than he does kid stuff. You know, he used to be the kid director, the fantasist, and now he tells more adult stories. And this one looks like it's going to be great. I am really, truly hyped for it.
Well, then we get to Christmas, which is on Monday, which is very rare for movies to come out on Monday, but it's Christmas, and so there's always a couple, and these are definitely more of the adult fare. I put these two together because they're both directed by interesting folks, and they also star interesting folks. The first one is called Molly's Game. It's an Aaron Sorkin movie, which means there's going to be a lot of walking and talking.
Yeah, but I love him.
Yeah, he's great. No, the walking is irrelevant, but the talking is unbelievable. And we've got Jessica Chastain, Idris Elba, in a movie about a high-stakes ing poker ring. And that's just that, and just the description is interesting.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I don't think Aaron Sorkin's ever directed a film before this. He's written a ton of great scripts, and the script for The Social Network is amazing. Obviously, The West Wing and Sports Night and all the other stuff that he's done. But I don't think he's directed before, and I love this cast. We also get Kevin Costner and Michael Cera, and it's been screening, and it's gotten some really solid reviews. It's a movie that, and Sorkin is listening to the rhythm of how people talk in his movies is part of the fun of it. Real people don't necessarily talk that way. If you saw the Steve Jobs film, which I really liked with Michael Fassbender, where it's just crackerjack, it's like the dialogue is machine gun fire in that movie. And I imagine the same way with this. But I really, really looking forward to this one, and I'm curious to see what kind of visual sense Aaron Sorkin has. Obviously, he gets good performances with his dialogue. His dialogue does, it's most of the heavy lifting anyway. And this seems like an interesting subject for him. A poker game, that sounds. I wouldn't have expected that from him. I would have expected his directorial debut to be about a political thing, or some sort of strange amalgam of, like Steve Jobs or The Social Network or something. Maybe the creation of like Twitter or something. I don't know. But this is an interesting subject for him, and I'm kind of excited to see it.
And then our final movie is a Paul Thomas Anderson flick, which right there it's worth seeing. And it stars Daniel Day-Lewis, which the last time they worked together was There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
And this is called Phantom Thread. This is about a fashion designer and the young woman that he falls in love with and uses as a muse, and she's like helps him with the designs. At least he uses her as a model, and obviously things are going to fall apart because that's what happens in these movies.
Yeah, it doesn't look so much like love as it looks like obsession. And yeah, this next to Star Wars is my most anticipated film of the year. I adore There Will Be Blood. We covered it on the podcast. And
MatineeHeroes.com.
Yep, that's right. And it's tremendous. I think that was probably legitimately our best episode. And please go back and listen to that if you want to dive in deep into that film, because that film is an utter masterpiece. That's a really high bar to set for this one. So I'm trying to lower my expectations purposefully because I don't know if it'll get there. This one looks a little more. There Will Be Blood gets crazy. This one looks a little more restrained, although it probably towards the end it's probably not nearly as restrained. And this is Daniel. He says this every other film he does, but Daniel Day-Lewis is going to retire from acting. He said this is his last performance, and I'm glad he's going out with, if he's going out at all, I'm glad he's going out with Paul Thomas Anderson, who probably pulled his greatest performance of all time out of him. I mean, that's a tough thing to say considering all the great performances he's done over the years, but I do think that There Will Be Blood is his best work, and I think that There Will Be Blood, where he kind of made this Kubrickian Altman-esque thing, and I don't know what to expect from this. I don't know, because the films that he made after There Will Be Blood, The Master and Inherent Vice is weird.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a weird noir that meanders, doesn't really go over places, but it's a lot of fun. And then The Master, which is obviously PTA's take on Scientology, which is interesting to me considering he worked with Tom Cruise at one point. It's a good film. It's a really good film with a really great performance from Philip Seymour Hoffman. and I don't know what this movie is going to do. I don't know what the kind of movie he made here. They shot a lot of it in secret. We didn't really know what the film was about until just recently when that trailer came out. And we just knew it was Daniel Day-Lewis set in the world of fashion, which I'm not a fashion person, so that was something that kind of made me think, well, maybe this isn't my cup of tea. But the trailer looks amazing. And the dialogue and the scenes, and these quiet little moments in the trailer between the performers looks terrific. I'm really, really hyped for this one. I cannot wait to see it. And like I said, next to Star Wars, is my most anticipated film.
Well, you'll hear us again if you haven't heard us before. We're at matineeheroes.com. Every week we talk about heroic cinema. Thank you for starting us, because it's kind of a weird situation where the podcast took a break, and I always start and end every season with you, Alan. So we're kind of usually this would be the end of the season, but we're because of my move, it's the beginning of a new season. So thanks for coming on, and we will talk to you sometime in February when we talk about Oscars.
All right, looking forward to it.
That's the show. Be sure to check out Alan's reviews at comingsoon.net and our movie podcast, Matinee Heroes, at matineeheroes.com. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at RealityCheckPod, on Facebook, and at realitycheckpodcast.com. Email questions, comments, and suggestions to Craig at speakercraigprice.com. See you next week.